Hello and welcome to another video on Microsoft Fabric. And in today's video, we are going to discuss semantic links. This feature of semantic link has been released few days back. Semantic links in Microsoft Fabric bridging BI and data science. So what is this feature? An innovative feature that seamlessly connects Power BI datasets with Synapse data science within Microsoft Fabric. So basically what happens in the notebooks, you will be able to use Python, and using Python you will be able to query the things from dataset. You will be able to see tables, you will be able to evaluate measures. So what all you can do is basically you can compute measures, read tables and execute DEX query. Semantic link goes beyond the plain data connectivity by propagating semantic information from Power BI to new capabilities of Microsoft Fabric for data augmentation, validation and exploration, as well as an extended set of semantic functions. So if you go down, there is a lot of details which has been given here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of these in today's session. So we have list dataset function. I can do a control click here. It will open in list table, list measure, read tables, evaluate measure. Some of these things we are going to cover today. So you have been given functions, how to do that, what is the syntax. The one thing which I found is lacking in the documentation right now. While you have been given a syntax, there is no example given here. So I'll try to cover a few functions here and I'll try to give some examples here. Now this is the Fabric package where you have Fabric data frame, Fabric series, metadata keys. Then you have another one, Fabric package. The same information is there. But if you go down here, you have get artifact ID, get lakehouse ID, get notebook workspace ID, get TMSL, get workspace ID, get list datasets. These are some of the things which you are going to try out today. And then the last one which I opened is basically Fabric data frame. You can get the information based on certain conditions, and this is based one example which has been given in this blog itself. If you scroll down in this blog, a few examples has been given. So what we are going to do is we are going to jump on Microsoft Fabric and going to try out few things from this blog. I have opened the Microsoft Fabric window. And in Microsoft Fabric, I'm going to open 01 Fabric. Now I was already trying these things. So let me see first of all, my session is stopped or not. So basically I've already created a notebook for testing and I'm just checking out that that notebook is not running. You can see it's showing run all. It means it's not running. So how to start with it? Instead of going to a lake house and then starting a notebook, I just wanted to see whether I can directly open a notebook and do this without referencing a lake house. So let me click on the new and you will see a little bit of changes of icons is there. These are the recently released icons, and you also see, now we have a more option instead of show all. So few small changes has come here in new. Now let me press on more options and you start seeing now data activator, which is available for a few days now. I would like to go to a notebook. I'll click on a notebook and it will create a new notebook for me. So it has created a new notebook for me. And what I'm going to do is I have written a step-by-step script which I plan to execute today. And the first step which you need to do is you need to install this library, which is semantic links. And the syntax for that is %pip install semantic-links. Semantic-link. Now I can click on run this cell because nothing is running right now. It's going to start the Spark session right now. As you can see, because we are using Python, so I'm using PySpark Python here. I'm not adding a data lake here. So let me click on run cell. For the first time, it will start a Spark session also. Usually take anywhere between 8 seconds to 13 seconds. This time it has started within 5 seconds. If you see message on the top right, and you can see the downloading has been done of various libraries. Seems like it is finished. Let me go a little bit up and check it out. Yes, 51 seconds, everything got completed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down, and when I hover over mouse below it, I'll get a plus code, and I'm going to press that. Now I want to import a library to work next. So the library which I want to import here is SEMPY, Semantic Python, you can call it SEMPY.fabric as fabric. So let me execute it, let it import. We are not doing any other action in this one. So this code is again completed. Now let me add the next set of code by again hovering over below the cell. After the log, means in the empty space, you'll get another code plus. And what I can do, I can have multiple code plus added here. And let me bring in the next command which I want to execute. And here I am saying fabric.get notebook workspace ID. And before I execute that, let me now use fabric.get, and it starts suggesting. So if you have seen, we have seen get lakehouse ID. So let me showcase you what this is going to give you. So you got the lakehouse ID. There is no lakehouse right now selected up. So it has taken one of them, seems like fabric. It's, as you can see, it is suggesting, and let me start typing like get artifact ID, get lakehouse ID. So let me call it get artifact ID, and let me run it. So we got the artifact ID. Now let me run the command which I copied from the commands which I wanted to run today. And this is my workspace ID, and I'm going to use it at few places. So using the workspace ID, the next function which I'm going to execute is, and for which I also need to show you the syntax, is get TMSL. So let's understand what this function TMSL is. This one, so it retrieves the tabular model scripting language TMSL for a given data set, and it returns TMSL for given. So tabular model scripting language, in that it's going to return as the model. And let me run the command. And this one requires, what does this require? If you see here, so it requires few parameters. See, dataset, str or UUID, and workspace, str and UUID. So we will go ahead and provide that information, and going to get the tabular model script language for the given dataset. So let's go ahead and try this out on our Microsoft Fabric. Let me paste the code, and here what I've done for the dataset warehouse 2. So I created a warehouse with the name warehouse 2. So the dataset name is also warehouse 2, and this is my workspace ID. As you can see, I got it here. And if you don't want, what you can do is basically you can put this code here. Okay, so it's like getting the ID of the workspace and then doing it. Now this is the current workspace. See, if you want to execute for some other workspace, you have to give the ID. So this is the code XML code which is there. The next thing which I'm going to run is basically I want to list the data set which this workspace has. And again, because I want to execute it for this particular workspace, I can simply use fabric.get notebook workspace ID, means the current workspace ID. Otherwise, you can also go ahead, and if you know the workspace ID, and workspace IDs are typically what happened, I'll tell you easier way. So you go here, app.powerbi.com, and when you open any workspace, let's say I am here in the workspace and demo 01 fabric, this is going to be your workspace ID. So I'll showcase you for this one also. So I copied that, but first of all, I'm going to execute it here for the current notebook ID. So we got these here. One of the data set which you will get is the warehouse 2. And now let me repeat that command again. So fabric dot list, and what I've done, I pressed control space. This is another developer trick if you don't know. And if you remember, I copied the workspace ID of another workspace, and let me try to execute that and check it out. I do have access to both of them, and you can see different set of dataset names is coming in. So these are the datasets which is coming in from my another workspace, which is 01 demo fabric. Now let's continue. Let's add few more code portions, or let's add few more code cells. The next thing I wanted to check out the relationship in my current workspace, what all relationships is there. So for that I have a function fabric dot list relationship. Violations list relationship require dataset ID, either a string or UUID, and the workspace. So 2 parameters are required. So let's go ahead and give these 2 parameters here, and I've already given that this is my dataset ID and this is my workspace ID. How did I get my dataset ID? If you remember, I listed it few minutes back, and here is my dataset ID. I can copy this one and use it. And let me run this now. And as you can see, it's showing me all the tables and the relationship. Sales table item ID, to table item ID. Similarly, another many to one relationship here. Sales customer ID, customers customer ID. This is how you read it. But we don't like reading in this manner. We would like to see a diagram, and to see the diagram we are going to take help of another library given in the blog itself. So I'm going to import from SEMPY relationships, import plot relationship metadata, fabric.list relationship, because it requires the dataset. So let's go ahead and first of all check out what does it require. Plot relationship require a data frame, and that data frame will be returned by fabric.list relationship. So we are good to go. We already have fabric.list relationship. So let's go ahead and try this out. So let's run both of these things together. And as you can see, it draw a really beautiful diagram using the Python code. And this is something you can do in Python. So you don't have to go back to your model and look at the relationship. You can pretty much plot it. And those of you who are staying long with the series and channel, you know that this is my very common data model. Usually this table might not be there. I have just created it here, but these are the common tables which I have: geography, customer, item, date. We don't call date 1, but here we called it a date 1, and then sales table. Let's go ahead and list the tables. So there is a function list table again. So it requires 2 parameters. One of them is the data set. Another one is workspace ID. So we are providing the 2 parameters, and let's execute it, and it do provide us details, and there are 231 across 3 columns. So it just printed a sample, but we can get all of them and analyze it. So these are the columns which are available here. Now let's learn few more function, and one of the things which I want to do is I want to read a table, and there is a function fabric.read table, and this function also requires a couple of arguments, and one of the argument which it requires is the dataset ID, and second one is the table name. Item is the table which I have in my fabric workspace, which I'm using the warehouse 2. Before I execute, let me add another code block, and now let me say run cell. Is going to return me item table data, and you got the item table. Same way I can go ahead and get other tables like sales. It may take a little bit more time. No need to select actually. Once you run it here, it's going to run the complete content of the cell. And that is why, if you might have noticed, that I am actually not running all the script in one go. What I'm doing is every time I'm pasting it into the newer cells and executing them one by one, so that I can explain it to you also and do slowly. So it has given a sample data here. See, there are 30,000 rows. So, but it has given some sample, and now this is, more about listing. So one more thing which we want to list here is basically what all measures we have. This is really important, and the more important functions are going to come when we are going to use those measures actually here in the Python. So the challenge, I'll tell you what happens is, when you go to SQL endpoint, it doesn't understand the measure which I created in Power BI model. When I come to Python also, previously it doesn't understand the measure which I created in my dataset. I can pick up my table or I can pick up my file and can do a lot of stuff. But Power BI measure, I might have done a lot of stuff to get that. And it was not able to understand those measures. But now not only able to list it out, but we are going to see how it's going to execute those measures. So all the hard work you are going to do creating those measures in the DAX, and you can use that in Python. So you don't need to go ahead and do those calculations again in Python just because you wanted to use something in Python for your analysis. So let me run this. It's going to list the measures, and few of these measures we are going to use in upcoming commands or upcoming code. I have added another piece of the code, and let me use evaluate measure. Now while I'm evaluating the measure, I am using time intelligence measure. This is what I've created here. So what I'm going to do that is, while evaluating the time intelligence measure, I'm going to use the date table also. So evaluate measure requires few parameters. So the first parameter is the dataset ID. The second one is a list of measures. So these are my list of measures. Gross MTD is one of my measure. MTD is another measure. And then group bys in another list. So here I'm giving only one group by, that is date, 1 month. Here you can give more than that, and it's going to take care of the relationship from the model. See, understand, gross MTD and MTD are based on the sales table, and you can see the calculation here. So the calculation is going to run on a measure which is on sales table, going to take care of the relationship with the date table, and going to give us the data. So now we got the data. So what's the beauty with this thing is, basically it's executed the measure here in Python code. We don't have to write down those logics here in Python. Once written in the data set can be used in Python. Isn't it really good that whatever hard work we have done for creating those measures in the Power BI dataset can be now used in our Python notebooks. We can just get those calculations by using evaluate measure function. Now the next thing which I'm going to do is, basically we have something known as fabric data frame. Now to do this, I actually need few steps. So I'm going to explain you those. So I have pasted the code, or what this code is, from SEMPY fabric import fabric data frame, and we are going to get a data frame which is fabric data frame, which is I'm passing array here, and inside that I have first thing which is my list. So I'm passing the information here. So first information I'm passing is basically the set of filters. So basically I provide a filter name, colon, the values which I wanted to provide in a list, and then again another parameter which I wanted to pass, another filter I want to pass, and the list of values for that. Then I create another data frame by using df.add measures. This is another function we are using. Add measure function required what measures I wanted to add as a list, and then I'm explicitly calling the data set parameter by providing the information of parameters. So the two things which are required, one is the list and the data set, which are compulsory argument I'm giving here, and then I am showcasing what is there in the df1, or basically printing it. So I got the information. Now the last function which I wanted to try out here is basically something which is really interesting. It's basically evaluate DAX. And evaluate DAX, basically what does it require? Data set. So this is the data set, this is my ID, and then you require a DAX. Now my initial confusion when I executed it, because the name was evaluated DAX, I was not giving a evaluate here. I was simply writing down summarize, and it was not executing. So what finally I done is I put evaluate, and this is how, if you remember, those of you who has worked on DAX Studio, you know that to evaluate that we need to write evaluate. So evaluate, and then I'm using summarize function. How does summarize function work? So this is just one text. This is one text for Python, but inside this one text. So we have summarize, which is my dex function, and inside that I'm giving a table name, which is my common fact table name, and this is my group by, so item brand. And why I'm giving slash here, because I'm writing down the code inside the single quotes. If I want to write down the single code, I need to give a backslash. And then gross is the rename of the measure which we do, and sum of sales quantity, which I'm using. I'm not using a measure, I'm actually creating a sum of quantity, and better let me rename it as qty sum, and let me run this. So we got this data. Let's try a little bit complex stuff. Let's see if we can use the measure. So I paste this code block again, and here instead of sum of this, can we use gross mtd? Okay, if I remember it correctly, this was gross mtd. So let's try with gross mtd. So we got the data. Let's try a little bit more complex query. The last piece of the code we wanted to try here in Python accessing our data set is I want to add here date 1, month, year, and let's see what we get. So it's running right now, and we got the data, and again it has cut it down, but we can take it in data frame and display as in we wanted, or we can do further analysis by using data frames. Now I've showcased you this new feature which has came in very recently, semantic links. I am hopeful that you will be able to take advantage of these features and able to smoothen your Microsoft Fabric journey, especially on notebooks. So why don't you go ahead and try this out, and do let me know what else you want me to cover in this particular series. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you.